Hey guys, in today's video we are going to be making a highly requested dessert. This is going to be a delicious rhubarb tart. So we have some gorgeous rhubarb from the garden. Sweet pastry, there is a previous video on how to make sweet pastry if you want to go back and watch that. And we are also going to be roasting our rhubarb with a little bit of orange juice and some sugar. So again, basic ingredients needed, and let's get started. Now, first off, for our rhubarb tart, I have taken about 8 stalks, medium-sized stalks of rhubarb. I have washed them and I have just cut them into about 2-inch pieces, I would imagine. This will all depend on the variety of rhubarb that you use. If you use a more woody or hard rhubarb, it will take a little bit longer to cook in the oven, where if you're using a forest rhubarb, it will cook considerably faster. So again, just keep an eye on this, because again, the cooking times will vary slightly. So what I'm going to do next is, this gives a beautiful flavour to our rhubarb. I'm just going to add in about 100 mils of orange juice, and the same here, about 100 grams of caster sugar, or granulated if you have it at home. That completely, depends on what you have in your kitchen. So rhubarb can be quite tart, so adding that little bit of sugar does help. So I have my oven set at 180 degrees, and I'm going to pop those in to roast for about 10 minutes. But again, keep an eye on your rhubarb, and what you're looking for is it to still hold its shape, but to be soft in the middle. You don't want it to be rock hard, but also you don't want it to be like a puree either. So don't be afraid to open your oven and take a little knife and test your rhubarb as it's baking. Now, our rhubarb has been roasting for just about 10 minutes. So that is absolutely perfect. So I'm just going to take this out and I'm going to allow this to cool down. So if you just take a knife, as you can see here, our rhubarb has kept its shape, but it is, see what I'm doing there? See how it's really soft? It just breaks when you put any pressure on it at all, and that's what we're looking for. So to be tender like this, because you have to remember we're going to be baking this for another 40 minutes or so when it goes into the tart. So again, take this out, let it cool down, and then that's ready to go. The next step is to line our tart. So I am using a 8-inch round. It's a loose bottom tart ring. As you can see, the base comes out, and that does help. Your fixed bottom tart rings is fine if you're going to make a crumble or something that you can serve it in, but I do prefer to be able to have the loose bottom tart ring where you can kind of lift the tart out when it's cold. I have my sweet pastry ready. It has been chilling in the fridge for about an hour. I've just taken it out, and I'm going to roll this now and line my tart ring. So I greased and floured my tin before I rolled it on, and I have just rolled my sweet pastry in, and I have just pressed in the little areas that you need to make sure are all covered around the corners, and I'm going to chill this now in the fridge for about 10 minutes before I blind bake it. So my pastry case has been resting in the fridge for 10 minutes and it has firmed up. Now I'm going to blind bake it. So blind bake it means that you're actually cooking the base before you put the filling in. If you put the rhubarb directly in on top of this and bake it, it will be very soggy and undercooked. So it is important to cook your base first. So by blind baking, what I'm going to do is just taking a sheet of parchment paper, and I'm going to push that into the center, and then on top of this here I'm going to add in some baking beans. So this really is a mixture of dried seeds and grains and rice and stuff that we've had in the kitchen. So what we do is we pour, you can use regular cooking rice at home, push all of that down. So we're going to push this down to fill up the tart. I'm going to add some more now, and then we pop that into a preheated oven set at 180, 160 fan, and bake that for 10 to 12 minutes until the edges go golden brown. So our tart has been blind baking in the oven for the past 12 minutes. So what I'm just going to do now is carefully take up the parchment paper, and then we have our beautiful tart crust, as you can see here, which is nice and golden brown around the top, but we just want to seal in any little, I suppose, holes or soft parts here in the bottom of the tart base. So what I'm just taking is a brush with some egg wash, and I'm just going to brush that all over the base, and this is going to act as a nice seal, and this will also help keep the base of the tart nice and crispy, and it'll stop it from getting the old famous soggy bottom. So again, just brush our egg wash here, and this gets popped back into a preheated oven at the same temperature for another, I suppose, 5 to 6 minutes until the entire base of the tart is golden brown. So now, as you can see, the tart shell is beautifully golden brown. I'm just going to carefully take that out, and I'm going to pop that on a cooling rack, and I'm going to let that cool for about 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to fill it up with the stewed rhubarb compote and top that with another layer of sweet pastry. Now, so my pastry case has cooled down, as has my rhubarb that I roasted earlier with that gorgeous orange juice as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spoon my rhubarb into the tart, fill it up, and I have the excess pastry that was left over from lining the tin. I've rolled that back up, and that's going to top the tart. So again, just have a little spoon here, and I'm going to fill the tart completely up here with the rhubarb and then cover it with another layer of pastry. So that was 8 stalks of rhubarb, and that fills that lovely just right up to the top here. That's what you want. So now I'm just going to roll our little block here of sweet pastry and put that directly on top of our tart here, and that goes into a preheated oven set at 180, 160 fan, and that will take about 35 to 40 minutes to bake. So as you can see, I have rolled my pastry out, and it's always good to do a little check. Just don't be afraid to measure your tart on top so you know that you have enough pastry rolled out to cover the entire tart. So what we're going to do here is simply roll this over our dough or our rolling pin, bring our tart in, and then simply unroll it on top of our tart like so. So as you can see here, it's nicely lined, and then just pressing the edges all the way around. That will break off any extra pastry that you have there. Just gently press it, and that will also seal that into the pre-cooked pastry. So next step is again a little bit of egg wash. So this is just some egg mixed with a tiny bit of water, and we're just going to rub that all over the top, give it a lovely even coating, and this is going to give it a beautiful golden brown colour on top, and it'll help it crisp up too in the oven. And then for an extra little bit of crunch too on top, this is additional, you don't have to do this, but a little sprinkling of sugar just to finish it off. Now at this point here, you can add little extra designs if you want to make little leaves or any sort of little extra pastry design that you have with your extra pastry. You can decorate at this point. And then I'm just going to make a little slit in the center here, and that is going to let all the steam off the rhubarb out as it's baking in the oven. So that is our tart ready to go. And as I said earlier, that goes into a preheated oven set at 180, 160 fan, and that bakes for about 30-35 minutes until the top of this tart is beautifully golden brown. So this is our delicious rhubarb tart. That was baking in the oven at 180, 160 for this one here was about 36-37 minutes. So again, you're in around 35 to 40 minutes, depending on how thick you roll your pastry topping. But again, as you can see, beautifully golden brown. A tiny little bit of a sugar crust on that as well. So that has been cooling now for the last probably 10-15 minutes. So I'm going to take that out of the tin and put it on my plate, and I'll cut up a little portion so you can see what it looks like. Now this is still quite warm, so it will cut a little bit neater if you let it cool down completely. But as you can see, the beautiful rhubarb that's in there. Always taste your rhubarb as well just before you put it into the pie, because sometimes it can be a little bit sharp, so you can add a little bit more sugar if you need at that point. So this is our lovely slice of rhubarb tart. I'm just going to give it a small dusting with icing sugar, and the perfect complement, just a little bit of pouring cream on the side. And that's it, guys. That is the very simple and hopefully delicious, that you'll try it at home, rhubarb tart.